It was Christmas morning. The house was still and quiet, save for the soft ticking of the clock above the fireplace. Outside, the snow blanketed the world in a peaceful hush, but inside, an old man sat beside his window, watching the sky turn pale gold. He had long stopped expecting grand celebrations. His family had grown distant over the years, but something about this morning felt different. Maybe it was the cold that pressed against the window panes, or maybe it was the way the silence seemed to wait for something. Then, his phone rang. He picked it up with trembling hands and saw his grandson's name flashing across the screen. His heart stirred with surprise. It had been months since they last spoke properly. Rushed calls, short replies, promises of soon. But this call felt different. "Wait for me at the airport, Dad," his grandson said, using the name he'd lovingly adopted as a child. "I'll be there soon." There was a pause, the kind that holds emotion deeper than words, before the call ended. He sat still for a moment, phone still in his hand, the warmth of that voice echoing in his chest. Then, quietly, with a small smile, he stood up. He opened the wardrobe and pulled out his old coat, the one his wife had once stitched the inside pocket of, years ago. He took out a small box from the top shelf, a Christmas present he had wrapped 2 nights ago, even when there was no plan of seeing anyone. He placed the gift carefully into his canvas bag, added a thermos of tea, and checked his watch. 10 minutes later, he locked the door behind him and stepped into the morning chill. The driveway was quiet, the roads nearly empty. As the cab pulled away, he looked back at the house, lonely, quiet, but no longer waiting. Today, he thought, he would not spend Christmas alone. Today, someone remembered. The cab moved steadily through the snowy streets, windshield wipers brushing aside the soft flakes like tired hands sweeping away old thoughts. The city, dusted in white, looked like something from a memory. As he sat quietly in the back seat, the warmth from the heater mixing with the faint scent of peppermint in the air, his mind began to drift. Christmas used to feel magical. He remembered a time, not so long ago, yet somehow lifetimes away, when the house was full of laughter and chaos. His daughter would rush around the kitchen in a red apron, the one with a little snowman dancing at the hem. His wife, gentle and graceful, would hum old carols as she stirred hot cocoa on the stove. And the boy, that little boy with the wild curls and endless questions, would race his tricycle down the hallway, yelling, "Faster, Grandpa! You can't catch me!" They would ride bikes down the sloped street just before dinner, bundled in coats and scarves, their breaths painting clouds in the winter air. On Christmas Eve, they would gather around the counter to bake cookies, flour on faces, dough stuck to elbows, and one too many chocolate chips in the batter. He could still hear his wife laughing every time their grandson sneakily ate raw dough, his cheeks puffed like a squirrel's. But those moments were tucked away now, tucked in showboxes, in yellowing photo albums, and in the quiet hush of his heart. He reached into his inside coat pocket and pulled out his wallet. Tucked behind an old bus pass and a folded receipt was a faded photograph, all of them, together, years ago. His wife had her arm around him, his daughter was leaning in midlaugh, and the little boy, maybe 5 at the time, sat on his shoulders, hands in the air like a tiny champion. He stared at the photo. So much had changed. Now, his wife was gone. His daughter rarely called. And that boy? That boy was a man now, one who had just promised to meet him at the airport. He clutched the photo gently, almost afraid it would crumble. Outside the window, the cab turned toward the highway. The airport wasn't far now, and for the first time in years, he felt like maybe something old was returning. The airport was alive with the usual holiday rush, families bundled in coats, children tugging on rolling suitcases, lovers reuniting with tearful smiles. But he arrived before most of them, stepping into the terminal with time to spare. He preferred it that way. He'd always been early for things that mattered. He made his way slowly to the arrivals lounge, his footsteps soft against the polished floor. The festive lights overhead blinked in gentle rhythm, casting warm glows on glass walls and passing faces. Somewhere in the distance, a child was humming a Christmas tune. He approached a small cafe kiosk and ordered a black coffee. No cream, no sugar. He'd given those up years ago. With the hot paper cup in hand and his bag slung gently over one shoulder, he found a seat near the arrival gates, close enough to watch the doors open, to see every hopeful face that came through. He checked his phone. No new messages. He placed it on the table beside him, face up, screen dark, waiting. He sipped his coffee and smiled quietly as he watched others reunite. An elderly couple embraced by their grandchildren, a woman bursting into tears as her partner returned from deployment, a group of teenagers waving handmade signs. The warmth of these scenes touched him, but in the quiet space between those reunions, his eyes would drift to the sliding doors. Still nothing. He picked up his phone again, just to be sure. Still no message. He must be caught in traffic, he murmured to himself, nodding slightly. Or maybe the roads are slow because of the snow. He looked at the time. Just 15 minutes past the hour. Nothing to worry about. People came and went. The seats around him filled and emptied. The festive music looped softly in the background, blending with overhead announcements and the roll of suitcase wheels. Still, he waited. Patiently. With the calm of someone who had waited all his life for moments like these, and had learned that the heart, when it loves, learns to wait without question. The hour stretched, as if time itself was taking slower breaths. From his seat near the arrivals gate, he became part of the background, one of the quiet observers who didn't rush, who didn't check boards or gate numbers. Just a man with a coffee cup now half cold, a wrapped gift resting gently in his lap, and eyes that followed the sliding glass doors like they held the answer to something he dared not say aloud. He watched as the world unfolded in front of him, strangers becoming family again. A tall man in a military coat knelt as his daughter sprinted into his arms, squealing with joy. A young couple embraced an elderly woman who wiped tears with her gloved hands, her laughter muffled by sobs of relief. Two brothers tackled each other with grins only shared by those who had spent time apart, but had never grown apart. He smiled softly at each reunion, quietly sharing in their joy from a distance, not with envy, but with a gentle appreciation. Then, he noticed a little girl standing at the end of the corridor, clinging to a paper sign with glittery letters. "Welcome home, Grandpa," it read in bold crayon strokes. Her eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on a man walking briskly toward her. Her face lit up. She dropped the sign and ran, her small boots thudding across the floor. The old man, clearly her grandfather, opened his arms wide, and they collided in a tangle of hugs and kisses. Laughter echoed, pure and unfiltered, the kind that fills spaces beyond sound. He couldn't help it. He smiled. The little girl turned and noticed him. For a moment, her eyes met his. Without hesitation, she waved. He waved back, his hand steady, though his heart had quietly stumbled. And then, silence returned. The sliding doors opened and closed again. More people came. More names were called. More tears fell into waiting hands. But his seat remained undisturbed. His phone, still blank. His coffee, now cold. The gift, still unopened. And yet, he didn't move. His eyes stayed soft, his back straight, because even though the loneliness pressed in quietly like a tide, he believed, truly believed, that soon, the doors would open for him too. By the time the clock in the terminal struck the 4th hour, the light outside had begun to fade. The wide glass panels that once welcomed golden daylight now revealed a dimming sky, painted with streaks of purple and blue. The holiday glow inside the airport still flickered, but it now felt more artificial, a poor substitute for the warmth that once filled his heart. He shifted slightly in his seat, the old leather of his coat creaking softly as he rubbed his hands together. The warmth from the coffee was long gone. The heating overhead seemed to falter now and then, sending chills through the waiting area. He pulled his coat tighter around him, glancing once more at the arrival board, though he had no flight number, only a promise. The gift still rested gently in his lap. The edges of the wrapping paper had started to crumple from his fingers, but he hadn't unwrapped it. It was something simple, something his grandson had mentioned needing months ago, in a rushed call. It wasn't about the price, it was the thought. A memory wrapped in ribbon. He reached for his phone again, typed slowly, almost hey. He stayed at the screen. The message went through. No reply. He exhaled, closed his eyes for a moment. And in that silence, a memory came, uninvited, but welcome. His grandson, perhaps no older than 10 at the time, had fallen off his bike during a summer trip, scraped his knee badly. Everyone had panicked, but not the boy. He had turned to him, eyes brimming with tears, but filled with trust, and said, "You're my hero, Grandpa. You always fix things." That day, he did. He carried the boy home on his back, cleaned the wound, and distracted him with stories until the pain passed. Now, sitting here in the echo of airport announcements and fading daylight, he wondered when that shift happened, when he stopped being the hero. Or had he? Maybe he still was, just the kind of hero who waits quietly, even when forgotten. He looked back at the message. Still nothing. The hours moved slowly now, not with urgency but with a quiet ache, the kind that settles into the bones when waiting turns into wondering. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped over the unopened gift. The crowd had shifted. Families had come and gone. New flights were arriving, but none brought the face he longed to see. Then came the soft sound of wheels, not suitcases, but a cleaning cart. From the corner of his eye, he noticed a janitor, an older man, perhaps around his own age, moving steadily across the terminal floor with a mop in one hand and a tired rhythm in his steps. The man paused a few feet away, stretching his back with a grunt and glancing around at the scattered passengers. Their eyes met. The janitor gave a slight nod. "Been here long?" he asked casually, his voice hoarse but kind. The old man offered a small smile. "A few hours, yes. Flight delayed." There was a pause. "Not exactly," he replied, glancing at the gate doors again. "Just waiting for someone." The janitor leaned on the mop, resting his hands at the top like a cane. "Family?" He nodded. "My grandson. Said he'd meet me here." The janitor tilted his head and gave a warm, thoughtful smile. "He must be lucky to have you." Something in that sentence sank deeper than expected. Lucky. That word hadn't visited his thoughts in a long while. He looked down at the gift in his lap and said quietly, "I used to think that too." The janitor didn't ask more, just stood there, silent for a moment, then nodded as if to say, "I understand more than I show." "Well," the janitor finally said, adjusting his grip on the cart, "Christmas brings all kinds of reunions. Some just take a little longer." With that, he pushed the cart forward, wheels squeaking gently against the tiles. The old man watched him disappear down the hall, the soft hum of a Christmas tune playing over the airport speakers again. And even though nothing had changed, something in that moment felt less heavy. Someone had seen him. And that, for now, was enough. 7 hours had passed. The bright terminal lights had begun to dim slightly, casting longer shadows across the tiled floor. The festive music had started to repeat, the same carols looping faintly, now just background noise to a silence that grew louder inside him. He sat still, unmoving, though his body ached from the hard seat. The coffee cup had long been tossed. The gift remained in his lap, no longer something he held with anticipation, but now with quiet confusion. His phone sat beside him, untouched for a while, screen dark. He hadn't received even a single reply. With a reluctant sigh, he picked it up again, hoping for a missed call, a delayed message, anything. Nothing. Out of instinct more than hope, he opened his social media feed. He barely used it, but sometimes he checked just to feel close, to see pictures of birthdays, school awards, Sunday outings. A way to still feel like part of something. He scrolled slowly, heart heavy, and then he saw it. A new post. His grandson. A selfie, bright and cheerful, his arm around a smiling young woman in a red sweater. Behind them was a long dining table set for Christmas brunch. There were glittering glasses, golden cutlery, cinnamon rolls stacked high. His daughter stood beside them, beaming. And next to her, a man the grandfather barely recognized, her new husband. The caption read, "Christmas brunch with my new family red hot, feeling so grateful today." His thumb froze on the screen. The noise around him, the announcements, the laughter, the footsteps, faded into a soft blur. His eyes lingered on the word, new. New family. He wasn't there. He wasn't mentioned. He wasn't remembered. He stayed at the picture for a long time. The smiles, the warmth, the effortless joy. And then he looked down at his lap, the carefully wrapped gift, still waiting to be given. His chest rose slowly and fell. Not from anger, not even from heartbreak, but from the quiet acceptance that sometimes people move on and leave you behind without even realizing they did. He locked his phone, and for the first time all day, he didn't look toward the arrival doors. He sat there, eyes unfocused, staring into the rhythm of people passing by, strangers reuniting, others rushing to their next destination, all unaware of the quiet storm settling in the heart of one old man at the edge of Gate 12. His phone rested heavy in his hand, colder than it should have felt. The last image still haunted him, the smiles, the table, the caption. Not out of jealousy, no, but because of the silence that followed. He had raised that girl, loved her through every phase, held her hand when she wept over heartbreak, paid tuition when things were tight, sang lullabies to her son when he had colic. He had built this family's foundation, brick by emotional brick. And now, he wasn't even a footnote. He unlocked his phone again, despite himself. The screen glowed too bright in the dimness of evening. He stared at the empty chat, the conversation that never truly began. His thumbs hesitated above the keyboard. Then, slowly, he typed, "I'm still here." He read it over once. Not a plea, not a guilt trip, just a statement of quiet truth. He pressed send and waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The message was delivered. Read, and yet, no response. He blinked. The screen dimmed. He let the phone slip to his side. In that moment, something inside him stilled. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even disappointed anymore. What he felt now was harder to name, a kind of aching invisibility, the weight of being forgotten, while still carrying the full memory of love. He looked at the gift in his lap, still unopened, still waiting. He let his fingers rest on the wrapping paper gently, almost apologetically, as if trying to comfort the part of him that believed, even for just a moment, that today would be different. His eyes watered, but he didn't cry. Not yet. He just sat there, silent, present, and painfully unseen. The terminal had emptied out. The last flight from his grandson city had long arrived, its passengers already swept into the arms of waiting loved ones. The lights inside the airport dimmed to their overnight glow, softer now, gentler, as if the building itself understood it was time to rest. He stood up slowly, joints stiff, the weight of the day settling across his back like an old coat. The gift remained in his hand, still perfectly wrapped, its bright ribbon now slightly crumpled from the hours it had spent clutched to his chest. It felt heavier now, not physically, but in meaning. Outside, the cold bit harder than before. Snow had started again, soft and steady, blanketing the world in white. He walked quietly to the curb and hailed a cab, the glow of red taillights reflecting in his tired eyes. A yellow cab pulled up, windows fogged at the corners. The driver glanced at him as he slid into the back seat, closing the door with the gentlest pull. "No luck?" the driver asked, voice soft, as if already sensing the answer. The old man didn't speak right away. He simply gave a small nod, eyes still focused ahead. The driver said nothing more. The city passed by in silence, storefronts lit with blinking holiday lights, trees strung with tinsel and stars, families visible through living room windows as they gathered around glowing hearths and full tables. He watched them all, not with envy, but with something quieter, something lonelier. He remembered when the lights in his own home would burn just as bright, when his laughter would rise above the rest, leading the carols, when his wife would glance at him from across the room with that knowing smile, when his daughter would cling to his sleeve, asking him not to forget the extra cinnamon in her hot cocoa, and when a small boy, once so full of wonder, would sit on his lap and ask, "Will we always be together on Christmas, Grandpa?" He turned from the window then, closing his eyes. The cab continued down the street, its heater humming, the gift resting gently in his arms, unopened, but held close, as if keeping something alive, Even if no one else remembered, it was still there. The front door creaked open with a tired groan, as if the house itself had been waiting, wondering whether he'd come back empty-handed or full-hearted. He stepped inside, the warmth of the radiator humming faintly in the background. He didn't take off his coat right away. The silence inside was thick, not the peaceful kind, but the sort that carries the weight of what didn't happen. The gift was still in his hands. He moved slowly to the living room. The old clock on the wall ticked faithfully. The fireplace sat unlit, framed with faded holiday cards from neighbors and a single one from the mailman. On the mantel, beneath a row of dusty pine cones, he cleared a small space. Carefully, almost ceremonially, he placed the gift there, unopened, untouched, its bright wrapping now dulled by the day's weight. He stood for a moment, just looking at it. Then, he reached into the side drawer of the shelf and pulled out a small notepad. He tore a piece from the top, found a pen, and in his slanted, weathered handwriting, scribbled, "For next time, if there ever is one." He placed the note gently beside the gift. It looked like it belonged there, waiting. In the kitchen, he poured himself a glass of water, then took out the plate he had prepped just in case, a simple Christmas meal, some bread rolls, leftover soup, and half a fruitcake. He placed a candle in the center of the table and lit it with a match that trembled slightly in his fingers. The light flickered, casting shadows across the room. He sat alone, the warm scent of cinnamon and faint pine lingering in the air. He didn't play music. He didn't speak. He just ate quietly. Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside, the candlelight danced softly across the table, across an empty chair, a folded napkin, and a heart that, despite everything, had waited all day, still hoping. A week passed. The house remained quiet, wrapped in a calm that felt neither peaceful nor painful, just still. The gift stayed untouched on the mantel, the note beside it slowly curling at the edges. Snowfall had turned the street outside into a white canvas, undisturbed by footsteps. Then one morning, a knock at the door. He opened it to find a courier standing in the cold, holding a thick envelope with a red seal. "Signature, please," the man said, handing him a clipboard. The old man signed without question. His fingers didn't shake this time. Back inside, he sat at the small table by the window and opened the envelope carefully. Inside, tucked between crisp legal pages, was a final version of something he had prepared quietly months ago. His updated will. He had made the changes in silence, not out of resentment, but clarity. Years had shown him the slow erosion of love masked as business, the gentle vanishing of respect hidden behind modern distractions. So he had decided, not out of spite, but out of grace, to give meaning where it would matter. His voice would not rise in confrontation. It would be felt in the choices left behind. As he flipped through the document, the words read like truth etched in paper. Names removed, charities listed, a scholarship fund created in memory of his late wife. Assets, once assumed to be claimed by blood, redirected to those who had shown kindness with no expectation of return. The janitor at the Veterans Center, the young grocery clerk who walked him home in the rain, the librarian who still remembered his name. He sat back, the morning sun catching the corner of the will as if lighting it on purpose. And in the quiet of his thoughts came a voice, his own, steady and calm. "They thought I was just an old man waiting. But I was watching too. Not bitter, not broken, just aware." And in that awareness, he found something even deeper than forgiveness, the power to choose how his story would be remembered. Not as the forgotten, but as the one who remembered everything. The snow had melted by the time the new year rolled in. The house remained quiet, but something had shifted, not in sound or light, but in spirit. News traveled slowly at first. A call from the family lawyer, a surprised tone in his daughter's voice, then disbelief, then silence. She had expected the usual, the inheritance, the home, the bonds tucked away over decades of patient saving. Her son, the grandson who once called that house his second home, had scoffed when he heard. "There must be a mistake," he said. But there wasn't, because the grandfather had made sure every signature was firm, every intention clear. The assets, the home, The investments, even the holiday fund he'd built with his late wife, had been redirected to an orphanage in the same neighborhood he grew up in, to a young student who had once helped carry his groceries, then sat with him in the park when his knees gave out. That same student had dreams of studying medicine. The scholarship was now fully funded. The grandfather never boasted about these things, never posted a word online, never asked to be seen. But he had been watching, quietly, all along. That morning, after the letters were confirmed, he sat by the fireplace, a cup of warm tea in hand. The wrapped gift still stewed on the mantel. He didn't remove it. Instead, he looked at it and smiled. A soft, knowing smile. "Let's give Christmas," he whispered, "to those who wait and never stop believing." That evening, outside the airport, Gate 12, the bench where he once waited remained empty, but it didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt peaceful. A beam of sunlight touched it gently through the terminal windows. And if you sat there quietly enough, you could almost feel something lingering in the air. Not sadness, not regret, but grace. The kind of grace that comes from waiting with love and leaving with purpose.